Today, we're looking at a blue ink by KWZ Azure number 2. As always, there's timestamps down below so you can skip around, but if you've got the time, it really would help me out if you check out this entire video twice. If you like blue inks, down in the description below is a link to the playlist with all of the blue inks there. If you're new here, hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. And if you're not, welcome back. Now, to keep some of the writing samples consistent, they're always done at first on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. Let's take a look at the first one, 80 GSM Clairfontaine. We have no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, no real shading here. The extra fine is a bit lighter than the stub with no feather, spread, halo, sheen. It does have shading. Look at how dark the is compared to quick. Brown starts darker and gets lighter. 19 seconds to dry. Medium is dark like the stub with no feather, spread, halo, sheen, no shading, 25 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both shows no color variation, though we get some in the extra fine. And the smear test says you may be able to recover this if you smear while you're writing. To have a range of experience with this ink, the writing samples are always done in a Jinhao 159 with a 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a medium, and a Jinhao X750 with an extra fine. Then a Pelican M1005 with a fine nib was inked up, used for a day, and used to take the notes for this video. Now, let's take a look at the second standard paper, 52 GSM Tomoe River. We have no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, no shade. The extra fine is a little lighter than the stub with no feather, spread, halo, sheen, or shade, and 25 seconds to dry. The medium is darker than the extra fine, about the same as the stub with no feather, spread, halo, sheen, no shade, 34 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation. We're not expecting it, we're not getting it, and the smear test on Tomoe River says you do not get to recover if you smear while you're writing. I agree with Vita. There's a lot to learn by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. A line of ink is put down, and then it's put in the water for 10 to 15 seconds. And this looks fairly like a true blue. It's fleeing its way up and really gathering towards the top, but it's spreading rather evenly. Now, the one on the right is let dry for 10 minutes before it dunks in the water, and you see that the line on the bottom shows that it's started to bond with that filter paper, and not all of it's moving, but there is quite a bit gathered at the top, though I don't know how resistant this ink is going to be. The third standard paper is 80 GSM Rhodia dot pad. We have no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, no shade. The extra fine is a slightly lighter tone with no feather, spread, halo, sheen. It does shade just slightly. You look at browns, a little darker to a little lighter. Fox starts darker, gets a little lighter, and a bit darker again at the X. 21 seconds to dry. The medium is dark like the stub with no feather, spread, halo, sheen. There is some hinting of shading. Brown starts darker than it ends. Over starts lighter than it ends. And 26 seconds to dry. Now, far left to far right, we do see a little bit of color variation. Much more in the extra fine than in the medium, but it is there in the medium. And the smear test says you could likely recover it if you smeared while you were writing. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on a page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. The smear is allowed to dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, it performs fair. I mean, you do see some blowout at the top of the lowercase h. I'm just super risk averse, and anything that makes me feel like I may lose my information makes me not want to use it in a note-taking situation. Water's reactivating and lifting most of this ink out. It's not showing the white of the paper just yet, but this has only been 30 seconds. Pen flush is doing a little bit more. You start to see some of the white of the paper coming through at the bottom of where the dot was. 1/3 bleach solution does completely remove it from the paper, leaving a little yellow staining on the paper. Now, it only took water to get this out of my pen. For the next writing samples, the paper is changed up frequently in order to get additional experiences with different papers. This next paper is Life brand paper. We have no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is a little lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen. It shows some shading. Over starts lighter and gets darker. Quick goes dark to light to dark. Brown goes from dark to light. 18 seconds to dry. Medium is dark like the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. 22 seconds to dry. The scrubby of the medium shows no color variation. The scrubby of the extra fine, far left, far right, shows a little, but it looks a little better in the writing. The smear test says you could likely recover it if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average viscosity was 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. KWZ's Azure number 2 has a viscosity of 2.11, making it just inside, but still normal. If you're interested in how the viscosity is tested, then there's a link to that video down in the description. The next paper is Apica CD Notebooks. We have no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen. It's showing some shading. Look at the KWZ starting darker, getting lighter. The medium is a little bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen. It does shade. Brown starts dark and gets light. Over starts light and gets dark. The is a full dark word. 13 seconds to dry. Medium is a tad bit darker than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. 17 seconds to dry. The scrubby of the extra fine shows a little color variation left to right, but it's better in the writing, and the medium shows none where there is none. But the smear test says you could likely recover it if you smear while you're writing. For the inks tested, the average dry time was 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. KWZ's Azure 2 has an average dry time of 25 seconds, making this take a little bit longer to dry. The last writing sample is done on Franklin Christoph paper. We have no bleeding and no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen. It is showing some shading because the WZ looks a little bit lighter than the Azure. Extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. 10 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine, about the same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 14 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation. We didn't expect it, we didn't get it, and the smear test you likely could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. Instead of finding inks that look like KWZ's Azure number 2, I prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I went for a nice pink ink by Herbin Bouquet Danton. If you'd prefer a different complement color, then take a look down in the description where you'll see links to playlists listed by color. So what do I think of KWZ's Azure number 2? There is a lot of color variation depending on the pen. The good news is if you want a little lighter tone, you can dilute this ink. I love the smell of the KWZs in the morning. So what nib and pen give the best writing experience with this ink? I really prefer it with a medium to dry medium nib to get the nicest tone with just hints of some shading in it. I hope you got something out of this video, and tomorrow we're going to take a look at Roher & Klinger's Iron Gall Scabiosa.